So thank you, and thank for all the technical people who are fixing things, and thanks for joining us from Italy and the UK, I guess, and also Tanja here on site. And we have a private microphone carrier for you. Fantastic. So we are going to speak about overlays, and this is a really hot topic. And I know people have very strong feelings about overlays, and that is fine. But let's try to something is happening here, truly. But yes, okay. So we will try to have this as a balanced discussion and not a war zone. If you could please join me on that idea. And also, I want to make sure that this stays an EU discussion or European discussion, because we do not have any legal experts from the US here. So many of the issues or problems, I don't know how to put it, but what has happened historically and is also happening now has to do with the US legislation and litigation and all of those things. And there are a lot of discussions going on. They are extremely important, but we cannot really answer to that in this context. So please let us keep that discussion for another event. So I have asked Roberto Scano, who is an accessibility expert from Italy, to provide us with a little bit of an overview, just to make an introduction so that we know what we are talking about. So Roberto, I've given you 10 minutes, and I know you could talk about this for 3 hours, but please do not do that, because then I need to shut your mic off. But thank you for being here with us today.
Okay, I try to keep in 10 minutes, but I hope I will be able. So, starting from the baseline, what are accessibility overlay? People before me explained something about. There are simply tools that can be added to websites for that promise to improve. I told always automatically to fix accessibility issue inside the website. We have different kind of products around the world about accessibility overlays. Something are widgets that you can activate. Other kind of accessibility overlays are managed from the backend of websites. So there are different technology. Why people choose this solution? Sometimes because seems that you can solve accessibility, at least few topics about accessibility with a fast solution. But the problem is that this became a permanent bridge. So the main issue is that they don't fix the website, but they put something over the website. So the website will be maintained not accessible. And when you will in future remove this plugin, you lose every topic. So the main issue is that you buy something like a marriage that will be for a lot of years. So this is the main issue. Also, as Catherine said before me, the Web Accessibility Directive talk about European harmonized standard, the EN standard that I think everyone here knows and have, I think, read one time. The most important thing that is when we make testing about accessibility, no tools can guarantee automatic testing for all the criteria stand inside the standard. So this also make clear that if no tool can check everything, no tool can guarantee to fix everything. So this is another topic that go against the choosing of the accessibility overlay. And also, as told by the joint document by International Association of Accessibility Professionals in European Disability Forum, that I thank again for do this, clarify that this kind of tool don't guarantee compliance with the Web Accessibility Directive, because there are some issues that can be done. And sometimes we also check that accessibility overlays create a new accessibility issue. We have also some example in the slide. The automatically fixing, we have tested that is less than 10% of the success criteria. So it's a little part. And this also can interfere with assistive technology and user interface personalization, because there are tools that automatically start when you use the keyboard, But for example, I navigate with the keyboard, but I don't need to have assistive solution because I prefer use keyboard for navigate website instead of mouse. And also when they present high contrast color, there's as decided by the developer or by the website owner, but the user must be guaranteed to personalize the web interface to his requirements. This tool can create false positive and false negative. The main issue is that, for example, if a tool generates a wrong alternative text, can cause an issue for people. Think, for example, on a commerce website. This is not the case of the public administration, but if I'm vegan, if I want to buy vegan products, if the alternative text is automatically and don't say me that this product is for vegan, I can buy a product that I cannot eat. So, and there is also, there could be also impact for site performance. But the main issue is that accessibility is a topic that we need to make a lot of education and outreach because people don't know about it. Only specialists know about it and only people with disability like it. So this kind of solution seems to be easy to implement inside actual website. So people choose this one. So sometimes they don't know what they are buying about fixed website. And we can also different issue for people with motor disability. A lot of this plugin, I think every kind of this plugin cannot guarantee to fix all the accessibility issue, navigation, menu, reach of buttons, etc. Cognitive disabilities. If there are missing use of title labels, this plugin cannot interact directly. The visual, the wrong alternative, like I told before, and the hearing. Video don't support natively caption. If we have video that, for example, are external source like a YouTube video, etc., you can auto-generate the caption. But if companies put the video inside their website, I haven't seen any tool that automatically create caption and put a caption in video published inside the website. So also some overlay automatically detect when assistive technology is running on user device, and this is also not very nice for the privacy of the user that navigate. So some example, for example, this tool is a solution that is hard or impossible to activate. There is the close icons that is not accessible. There is not visible focus, no keyboard activation, no mouse activation. So I cannot activate this topic. So I can close this solution. Also, the dialog cannot be closed. As you see, there is as you can see, if you are able to see, there is a window without a closing button. So I can click it, but if I use the keyboard, I haven't any button that let me to close it. So and also the accessibility option go behind the dialog. So this is a case that I can block it. Is one of the cases that is a big issue by the standard, set by the standard as mandatory that need to be fixed. And then there are other icons that make me leave the website. So this is a real example of the technology that can block the user with disability to interact. And then we have the profile issue. When we have a solution that automatically choose the high contrast, this can cause issue that we can have menu icon or search icon or other links that disappear from the website because there is not someone that check. There is a software that automatically do this. So this is another example. And then I've found this one in all the tests that I've done with different solutions, the magnification of the content. When website is not developed with reflow in mind, and there is increasing of font size or adaptation of the screen, we have some issue that text is overlapping text and image. So these are only 3 examples what can cause this overlay if not rightly configured. But if you go to say how many websites use, we haven't a real number that can give us this information. I think I give an idea. I think that the monitoring body for Web Accessibility Directive should also check how many websites use this tool, so we can have an official map of usage of this kind of tool. In Italy, I do an example. In Italy, we have extended the Web Accessibility Directive also to private sector, to big companies, because the Web Accessibility Directive inside the original text say that European Commission will love to extend this one also in the private sector. This is before the Accessibility Directive. And in Italy, there is the reason is that if a company fail to apply the accessibility, should be fired about 5% of their balance as amount of fee. And so they go in panic because a lot of companies don't think about accessibility. So they first state that the Resus is the solution with the widget. The main problem is that with some, in some cases, not all the cases, but in the bigger number of cases, they stop to do fix after this situation. So they say, okay, this tool can guarantee me to be conformant, so I don't need to do more topics. So what we need to do instead of the overlay? We need to start to think accessibility by default. This is a leitmotif that I take, I think, 10 years or more. We need to educate people to develop with accessibility in mind. We don't need to go to fix later. We need to create directly accessible product. We need to do assessment periodically, making remediation activities. Education and outreach, I think, is the most important topic. We need to educate people that also create content for websites, and not only people that develop websites. And then the most important, we need to involve people with disability in the testing. So if we choose one solution, we need also to test with accessible, by disabled people. We don't need only to launch an accessible tool that say, okay, you are conformant. We need to involve the user. So artificial intelligence in future eventually can support our work. We can see that now this tool can create everything, can prepare slides, can document, etc. But for accessibility, is a risk. Is a risk like the other document than they prepare. Because if I prepare some slide about a topic and I give the power to the artificial intelligence, I need also to have the intelligence, the human intelligence, to check what is right inside this material. So the same topic is for accessibility. We need to tell again that none of this technology, none of testing technology can guarantee to evaluate total accessibility of a content of a website, especially web application. And so we need also to guarantee to not add something that can risk to harming user, because if we start with the idea to support user with accessibility overlays, but the accessibility overlays create more accessibility issue for some kind of disability, we are going to write topics. We buy the wrong things and we don't start to make real accessibility of our service. So I thank you. If there are questions, Susanne, if there is time for question, or I think my time is gone. Until they fix, there was a question that was longer that I replied in chat. The core of the question was, but why we need to implement something, an alternative solution, if we can directly provide directly a website accessible? Yes. The main issue is this one. The topic is that a lot of companies don't think about accessibility, but not directly only the company, but the company that serve websites and service mobile app don't implement accessibility. So the causes of inaccessibility is old, is that developers don't know, don't study the standards, don't apply the standard. They think only to the view part, so the design. So they also chose the wrong color. So we have a lot of issue. We need to ranging a lot of experts that at now are no experts, are people that need to be fixed. Mm-hmm. Susanna?
I don't know if they can hear us in the room.
No.
If they can, but we can't hear them. Susanna, did you want me to give a few thoughts from me? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so number one, Roberto, thank you so much. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. Just to kind of put a few things sort of in context for people. For somebody who has an access need to get an accessible experience of a website, or for that matter, any other digital thing, two things need to be there. It firstly needs to be created to work to standards and work with assistive technologies. And the second thing, and this is one of the places where I have a slightly different view, people need to have access to those assistive technologies. So these overlays, effectively, we are talking about two things here. Firstly, we are talking about widgets. Secondly, we're talking about kind of like automatic fixes. And I agree with all of Roberto's points about automatic fixes, even if they are done well, and the AI is super amazing. Yeah, as soon as you stop paying the vendor of the AI, you've lost all of your accessibility. So nobody actually in the companies who are using these tools are actually getting better at accessibility. So it's a short-term solution, which is, I think, problematic, because what we want is organizations to get this stuff right the first time. The way of thinking about this, I would say, is if you know the car industry, the Toyota way was something that came in the 80s. So rather than you know, creating the car and then having a shed at the end to fix all of the things that went wrong when you were creating it, which was inefficient, they decided to actually try and test as the car was being built, and huge efficiencies came from that. That's why we all have cars that are a lot more reliable. And so fixing it after the fact just doesn't make sense from a scalable, repeatable, long-term solution perspective. The other thing, though, and it's just kind of worth noting that the widgets. So I've done a huge amount of research over the last 10 years on the widgets, and those are, if you like, potentially the replacement for settings that are in operating systems, in browsers, things that are there in assistive technologies. So one thing to be aware of here, widgets aren't necessarily bad. The research that we've done has found that actually a lot of people who need to use the accessibility personalization options in their operating system or their browser don't know how to do that. So at the moment, they aren't getting the right sort of experiences from websites. You know, especially a lot of old people. My mum, for example, wants everything bigger so that she can read it. But when I say, oh, don't worry, Mum, just go into Internet Explorer, find the settings and change the settings in there, she'll say, how do I do that then? So there is potentially something that we need to consider here, which is around some of these widgets are actually quite helpful. The user interfaces for them are certainly more available for people than stuff which is hidden away in the browser. There's no sort of perfect solution for this, because the problem then is that people set their settings in one interface on one website, and they're not carried across to the next ones. So there is no full-on solution for that, but it's just worth noting that there is nothing inherently wrong with having an accessibility widget to help people. In fact, a lot of those widgets provide a lot more accessibility support than a lot of the things in browsers. So please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you know that phrase. The key thing that I think we're all probably agreeing on here is that AI, it would be lovely if you could not have to know anything about accessibility, create your website and get everything wrong and press a button and magically everything to improve. That may be the case in the future, but until AI is able to create an entire website for you, until AI is able to take over the roles of the developers, the designers, and everybody else, the idea that something as complex as accessibility is able to be done by AI, I think is a little naive, really. So my perspective would be exactly as Roberto was saying, accessibility by default, accessibility by design, accessibility maturity, call it whatever you like. I wrote the international standard ISO 30071 Part 1 to try and help organizations understand how to get good at accessibility. The key thing here really is that where organizations don't care about accessibility, where they try and use shortcuts, they may, in the best opportunities and with the best technology, get a little way forwards, but the best way forwards across all of the digital technologies that we use. So we're not talking just about websites here. If you think back to what Catherine was saying, you know, intranets, social media, PDFs, internal documents, all of these need to be accessible for people who have a disability to have really good access to digital communications. And anything that, if you like, doesn't help the people who create those to get better at doing those in an accessible way is probably very, very limited in its application. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to be thinking about overlays at best as a solution if nothing else is possible. There are certain parts of certainly public sector here in the UK where monitoring happens and finds that maybe a local government hasn't made an accessible website. They send those results to that local government organization and they don't know what to do with them because they didn't make their website. Oftentimes it's a digital agency that they haven't spoken to for 3 years. They actually don't have any ability for that organization to have to fix accessibility. So accessibility just kind of like contracts down and never goes forwards. Those are maybe the only cases, I think, where overlay technology can be good, because maybe in those circumstances where it's all about the law, if you like, and contractual stuff, that overlays can provide a little bit of a help going forwards. If nothing else, then look at these. But there are better ways of doing accessibility. That would be my perspective. Susanna, I hope you can hear us in the room now. Cool, that's good. I'll go back over to you. I think we're still having some issues in the room. Whilst we try and hear the folks in the room, Roberto, did you want to answer any of the questions that are coming through? Yeah, it says Susanna is muted.
Yeah, Jonathan, this is Christopher with IAAP. Yeah. It's good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, if y'all could answer some of the questions coming in the chat while we're trying to figure this out, that would be great.
Yeah. So, so we've had some questions coming through about, what happens if the overlay technology breaks things. So yeah, I mean, that would be one of those things that you would be checking. I think the key thing, and I can see it in a lot of questions from people, is that an overlay technology is only something that you can sort of like consider doing if you check it out with real people. If an overlay technology is going to make your website less accessible for some people, how would you know? Well, a very good way of checking that would be to find somebody, to a certain extent, anybody who you can find who has a disability, who uses assistive technology, to check it out. Most of my thoughts around overlay technology come from doing just that. So we have one of our clients, and most of our clients won't even consider overlays because they don't think it's the right strategy for them. One was interested, so we did some user testing with a number of people with disabilities. Here's one of the quotes. This is how people can sometimes feel. There was a button to turn on screen reader functionality, and this is the exact quote from the person who was blind. Absolutely hate the idea of having to have separate accessibility for a site to work. Have we gone back to the 1980s? And there were questions coming through about universal design. Roberto was asking, talking about how to make sure that one website works for everybody. And ideally, that's the best way of doing things. People do not like the idea that they're being funneled off down a different route to get a more accessible thing. Ideally, and it is achievable because we are achieving this with our clients every day of the week. Organizations can get good at accessibility, and so one site, one mobile app, one Word document, PowerPoint document can be accessible for everybody. Organizations just need to understand that their staff need to be trained in how to do that. And certainly from somebody who trains people, every week, we find a lot of digital staff love the insights that come from accessibility. Whilst it requires them to work more, if you like, harder, they actually really get it a lot of the time, and actually they find that it's something that they can integrate into their skill set, and so therefore they are now a better designer, a better coder, because they are able to design and code not just for some people, but for everybody, because they've thought about accessibility.
Jonathan, this is Christopher again.
Yeah.
You talked about widgets earlier, some positive aspects of it. Can you dive into that just a little bit more? And then in addition to that, in doing your research around around overlays, have you seen some of the false claims that are out there by some of these companies? Have you seen any improvements of these false claims?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the false claims, we have to be very, very careful what we say in public, because unfortunately, a lot of really heated words have happened. And so some accessibility experts, in fact, one in particular, is being sued by one of those companies at the moment. So I think the key thing here is that the technology is likely to improve. The way that I sort of advise clients that we have at Hassel Inclusion is to be very careful about any organization that makes those sorts of claims. So one of the things that I'm doing in the background here is actually pulling up a link to a webinar that we did a few months ago. I'm just going to pop this into the chat just in case anybody might want to go and have a look at it, because yeah, some of the tools that are available for accessibility personalization are really, really good. The link that I've put into the chat is actually a conversation between myself and a couple of people who have tools like that. So that literally the CEOs of those two companies who have widgets but don't claim to fix accessibility. And I think it's really important to differentiate those two things from each other. To give you an example from user research, literally just from a couple of weeks ago, we were doing something with people in airports who had disabilities. And what they said a lot of the time was that They may have the right assistive tech at home, but when they're in an airport, they're now dependent on their mobile phone, and they may not have the capabilities there, and they may need to be able to get access to information really, really quickly in emergency circumstances. It could even be that they're using somebody else's phone. They've borrowed someone's phone to do that. And so what they were saying to us is that if these widgets are available, if they can get the same sort of functionality which is there in the browser on most sort of desktop computers, in a website, that would be, they would feel that that would be a very supportive thing for them. Another one of the organizations, a company called Facility, they're headquartered out of France, and they do a lot of work in Japan as well. They've done a huge amount of user research into what is missing in the accessibility capabilities of browsers. And so their tool goes far beyond the sort of things that you can get with browsers and assistive technologies at the moment. The key thing there, and the thing that, if you like, is my Occam's razor in this area really, is if people talk about having done research with people with disabilities, I would be more likely to believe them. If people talk about we can protect you from the law, I don't think that would give me the same level of confidence, shall we say. Is that making sense to you, Christopher?
Yes, makes sense. Thank you for that. And this is Christopher. Jonathan, one last thing, and hopefully everything will be moving forward. You talked a little bit about the importance of education. And what Roberto just did a few minutes ago, I thought was just spot on. We need to have that out there more. For EDF and IAAP, we're in the position to at least push out, information. Any recommendations for us that we could do to move forward and advance the topic globally?
So, I mean, the first thing is I like your statement, the one that's already been sort of put into the chat. So I think that's it's good because it's quite balanced as well as educational. And I think Roberto was absolutely right. A lot of organizations just don't know what they don't know in this sort of area. And, to be clear, most of the organizations who are buying overlay systems are just desperate to get something sorted. Maybe it's not the best thing for them to do long term, but at least they're trying to do something. From my perspective, we're training people all of the time, WCAG can be quite confusing for a lot of people. So a couple of things. Firstly, our value at Hassel Inclusion is really quite simple. We train people. We don't tell people they're useless at accessibility. So we are about training, not fixing, and certainly not auditing. Accessibility, is too much about the tests. Most people who get the results of a test are clueless. They haven't got a clue what they should do next. A test without a fix is worth nothing. And actually, the better thing for organizations to do is to make sure that their staff actually know what they're doing around accessibility. So 2 ways that can happen. First way, your IAAP, you have accreditations. So if you are just about to recruit a designer, a developer, whatever, then ask them, what sort of accessibility accreditation have you got? What sort of training have you had? That sort of thing, massively useful. We do a lot of assessments of staff in organizations, thousands of people in really large organizations, to help them understand where people have already learned things on their journey. Most people these days have picked up some accessibility knowledge in their career. And then where people haven't got a clue. And so it's finding the gaps in your organization and then saying, okay, the place that we should probably be spending our money is in training people in what they don't know so that they can get this right, not spending all of our money on testing, because testing is really great, but testing will only tell you that you've got a problem. You know, training is the thing that will actually prevent that problem happening in the first place. That's what I would say.
No, and you know, Jonathan, I know, and Malcolm, you can definitely follow up with some questions in just a second. But I think, you know, the work that you've done with maturity models and looking at the organization as a holistic aspect of it, and then dipping into those areas within the organization that makes the biggest impact for change, right? And again, the user, getting those users involved into the mix, into that life cycle is critical and not easy, even though it should be. Malcolm, I'll let you read out some of the statements.
Thank you, Christopher. This is Malcolm with IAAP. We've got some comments from Tanja, who's giving the user perspective, who's in the room at the moment. Starting with go. Sorry, I lost the comment. Just getting it quickly. So starting by saying that from the user perspective, there's no positive aspects of the overlay. One example is that an airline company where the overlay system broke the booking system. So then what's the point? Then following up, Whiskey is responsible for accessibility, also a legal issue if the user can't carry out the service. And then the legal requirements have been established and the public sector needs to comply with the standard. In our team in the EP, we have published a recommendation to website owners in the Parliament to not accept the offers of overlays and consult with accessibility experts, in parentheses, internal team and EP. And the way overlays work today, the technology is wrong because AI is not checked by a human once it writes a solution. If technology is changed in a way, it is integrated inside authoring tools or checkers so that humans can make a check, that would be more fruitful.
Great comments. Thank you, Malcolm. Jonathan, thank you so much. This is great. We're going to restart the system, Malcolm. Is that correct? And,
that's correct.
Okay, so if everyone could just give us a few minutes and then come back in, maybe 2 minutes, 2 or 3, and we'll get started again. We apologize for this inconvenience, but we'll be right back. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Roberto.
So welcome back, everyone. I am not very fond of technology right now, but I'll try to make my best to talk about ICT and web accessibility in a good way and positive way. We are just going to use a couple of minutes to catch up with Tanja Kleut from the European Parliament. She's an ICT accessibility expert, and I wanted to make sure that she also got her voice heard in the overlay panel.
Thank you. So I will first start from the user perspective. As accessibility overlays do not help users. I can give you examples. For example, overlays often add headings to a text where it thinks it should be a title, but sometimes it is not a title, so it is wrong. Sometimes it gives wrong alternative text, and then the user still doesn't have the correct alternative text that the website does not provide. And a critical example is where a European airline company decided to use an overlay for their inaccessible booking system, where the overlay still does not help the user to make a booking. So still the user cannot book a flight with this overlay on the website. So the main functionality is not working. And then the question is, where is the responsibility? It can be a legal problem because the user cannot perform the main functionality on this website. We have the legal requirements that the public sector should adhere to comply with the accessibility standard, and this is the way to go. In the European Parliament, in the ITech accessibility team where I work, we have published a recommendation to website owners to not accept offers from accessibility overlay companies, and eventually they can consult our expertise or accessibility experts to see whether that solution might be a good solution, but not to accept automatically. And in my view, the technology or the solutions that we have now on the market under accessibility overlays are wrong, because the AI is changing the website on its own without allowing a human check. So the AI is not controlled by a human, and this is wrong. So if accessibility checkers would integrate AI functionalities, AI intelligence in the system, or if authoring tools would allow to use AI, then with a human check, that can be verified if the proposal from the AI is correct or not. So that would be much more helpful for making faster the remediation process, and the user will have correct content on their site. So public sector should first of all prioritize the needs of the users, consult accessibility experts, and follow the accessibility standards. And accessibility is a long-term commitment and not a quick solution. Also for the public sector is taxpayers' money, so it's not a solution that benefits the users, the citizens. And how we can still foster innovation and accessibility. It is important to observe the market and the solutions that are proposed by the market, and see how AI can help us. But anyway, I think it's important that AI is controlled by a human and not AI that controls us or accessibility in this case. Thank you.
So thank you. It became a presentation instead of a panel discussion, but that was very good. And I have understood that the discussion in the online part of this was very interesting. So I look forward to hearing what the panel ended up being without me being part of it. That was a new one. But I really think from the perspective of IAAP and EDF, just to summarize, is really that all this technology may help, and when it does help, we should really use it, but we need to use it with a little bit of elegance and also always test with users before, and not just jump on the first new tech that somebody is offering to us. I think that's just common sense to be careful and test with users before we adapt anything new. I think that is the kind of the main thing of this. And I'm really happy about the statement we did together with EDF, and also to have Tanja here representing the end users and the parliament, and with wearing two hats at the same time, because I think sometimes in the overlay discussion, the users have not been that present. So it's mostly industry discussing with industry. And I think we really need to make sure that the end users have their say as well. So thank you very much. Tanja, did you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you, Susanna.
Okay, so then we are finished finally with the overlay session. I thought this would be problematic from a discussion point of view, but it became problematic from a technical point of view. And we have a question from the audience, and let's see if we can have if this is a quick one or a super complicated one, because we only have.
We'll see. I'll try. I was wondering whether how privacy fits into this, because one thing that overlays do is require people with disabilities to disclose their disability in order to get an accessible experience. And one, is that actually even legal? And two, should it be?
So I will not try to respond if it's legal or not, but I would let Tanja respond to the user perspective again of the privacy part of this.
User perspective, I think it's problematic, but I cannot speak of legal part. But user perspective, why the user should share this information with the website? This is a very good question.
Okay, but since we don't have any person who can answer on the legal part of this, I think we'll leave that hanging. It's a good question, and let's get back to that at the later occasion. Now we need to change the panel into the next one, which is accessibility enforcement from the monitoring perspective. So thank you, Tanja.